Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how top experts sell their ideas, their value, and their services. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees. Here's some advice that you need. You want to write a long, hard, painful, thick book that no one's going to buy, no one's going to read, no one's going to review, and certainly no one's going to hire you from. No, wait a second. That's crazy advice. Let me get you straightened out. My friend Mike Capuzzi is here, and we're going to talk about the magic of short, helpful books. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, David, that was a heck of an introduction.
I know. Well, so a lot of people, though, they are listening to this as an entrepreneur, as a thought leader, as a CEO, as a consultant. And they're like, Mike, I've been working on my book for 4 years. Someday it's going to be ready, buddy. Someday it's going to be out there. And I can't wait to be a published author. So let's back up before we even unpack that level of craziness. Give us the Mike Capuzzi story. Tell us about some of your professional adventures and what is it that brought you to the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate that. And first of all, you and I met because you were kind enough as a multi-book published author to be on my podcast a few weeks back. And then you were kind enough to invite me on your show. We happen to be fairly close to one another here in Pennsylvania. So I lived in Pennsylvania my whole life. And, always had a just deep love for books. My mom's mom, who lived up in Wilkes-Barre, upstate Pennsylvania, I would travel up there in the summers, and she had this huge library. When I was a real small kid, she encouraged me to read. And I'm not talking kids' books. I'm talking like her books, her novels. And I just loved it, David. So I can remember being in elementary school during reading hour. I'm reading thick books like, real novels, and other ones are reading like little coloring books. So I've always had this love of books. And, long story short, I graduated from Penn State with an engineering degree. I did engineering for a number of years, moved into an engineering software company that was very small, traveled the world. They started up a marketing department. They were strictly technical, but then moved into marketing and sales, started traveling the world, met my wife there. That's where I got my chops on marketing. I went from technical to marketing. At the height of the dot-com bubble, 1998, I left that company and started my own consulting agency for software companies and really helping them with marketing and some companies in our Philadelphia area that you would know too. Did that for a number of years and then finally really started focusing, David, on more local Main Street businesses, smaller businesses. I loved working with the owner founders and not marketing departments. It was just, as you probably know, it's a tedious thing when you're working with a team versus one or two people. So since about 2004, that's what I've been doing, really focusing on helping business owners do better marketing. And over the years, I had always wanted to write a book and publish a book. Never thought I could do it. 2007, that changed. 2008, I started helping others do it. And now here we are in 2023, and I've got 19 books under my belt, 240 some odd client authors that we've helped. And we've really perfected a very unique formula that I know we're going to talk about here in a second.
Yes. Well, let's talk about my philosophy on this, and I'd love to hear your take, obviously. A book that is not read and not read by an economic decision maker is a book that you might as well not write. So people often tell me, David, I'd love to write a book, but I don't have the time. It's like, I have great news. Your readers are really busy. They don't have time to read a big, long book. So why are you thinking that you need to write a big, long book? And then someone else who is in branding, and I forget her name, but it was a great quote. She said, a number of years ago, it occurred to me that most executives, most CEOs, most economic buyers, they get on a plane. Let's say they're going from Philadelphia to Chicago, about a 2-hour flight. They start reading a book, and maybe they get to page 80 or page 100, then it's time to land the plane. Unless they're really captivated, they're never going to finish that book. So she says, I've stopped writing books. And Mike, here's the line. I've stopped writing books. I started writing half books. Because half a book, again, that 80 to 100 page sweet spot, half a book they'll read, half a book they'll finish. A book that they finish, if you put the right things into the book, and we'll talk about that also, a book that they finish, a book that has the right sort of mechanisms, the right kind of direct response mechanisms inside, that book will get you hired. That book will bring you and your company money. So I love this whole concept that you've coined of the shook, that's SHOOK, the short, helpful book. But talk about long versus short, and talk about some of the ideas that your authors come to you with going, Mike, I've got 300 pages down. I'm just about ready. And you're like, no. So how do you talk an author down from this concept of writing the encyclopedia?
Wow, a lot to unpack there, David. So let's start with, I don't necessarily agree, and I don't think this is what you meant to say, like there's no room for a regular 300-page, 400-page business book, right? There are times where that may be appropriate, but for, I would say, 90% of regular business owners, entrepreneurs, corporate leaders, that's not the kind of book, at least for the first time around, that's not the kind of book they need to be worried about, in my opinion. So yes, there is a place. I don't want someone to say, oh my gosh, every book should be 100 pages. However, I do agree, David, that for most of us, 3 100-page books is oftentimes a better strategy than one 300-page book. And I say that, ad nauseum. Matter of fact, I wrote a book called The 100-Page Book, which is, sort of one of my calling cards. So why? All right. Well, you've already iterated, why. Most people, they're time strapped. They're important, busy people. They're, I don't know about you, David. I love books, but I don't know how many books I start as I've gotten older and just can't finish. Like you get bored, they repeat themselves. Like when the heck are you going to get to the main point, whatever it might be. So, I call those books with bloat. They're bloated books. And you're right. If no one ever gets through your content, or at least gets to the places you want to make sure they get to strategically, then that book can be considered a wasted opportunity. Yes, it was fun for you to do, it was something you wanted to do on your bucket list, all that. But if it was meant to move the needle forward, I think it's a much better, a much more strategic approach to write a short, helpful book. And I use your same metaphor of the business owner or corporate leader getting on a plane. I typically say New York, but I should say Philly to Chicago. And he or she reads this book because our books are about a 1 hour, 90-minute read. And all of a sudden, like, whoa, what David shared in this is powerful. I need to go, what's that next step? And hopefully, if you've done it right, you've outlined those next steps in your book. A lot of authors miss that. And now that's how you turn a $5, $10, $20 book, I often suggest free, into real money.
And, I think people, maybe it's an age thing, but the all-time best-selling business books of all time, a significant percentage of those are and were short books. Mm-hmm. So I'm talking about books like The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield. Short book, light pages, lots of margins, brilliant content, short book. Who Moved My Cheese? Fantastic concept, great hook, great marketing, short book. The 1 Minute Manager, same thing. Again, we're talking about multi-million, 7 million, 9 million, 10 million copies. Another one is my friend Phil Jones, who I've had on the podcast as well. Exactly What to Say. Short book, sold over 1 million copies. Do you love selling? I know, me too. Do you hate selling? I know, me too. Listen, fantastic sales book you got to get your hands on. How do I know? It's mine. That's how. Do It Selling is now available for sale. Grab your copy, grab all the bonuses, all the companion tools, all the training, all the videos that go with it at doitselling.com. See you over there. So people are like, oh, that's never going to work. People don't buy little short books. So here's my philosophy on this. People will buy the book. They will read the book. They will review the book. They will share the book. And a small book like that is also brilliant for sponsorship. So bulk sales, in other words. So you're speaking at an event, right? Your book retails for $29. It's with a big New York publisher. Shipping, like you're shipping bricks across the country. You say, hey, we got 500 people in the audience. Mike, can we buy 500 of your short, helpful book? The book is small. The book is light. The book is, it's a paperback. It's not a hardback. And you can send those books and you can make an awful lot of money from the bulk book sales. There's just so many reasons that people need to jump on board with the short, helpful books. Talk about some of the misconceptions about short books.
First of all, are you psychic?
Okay. I am.
Are you? Well, here's why.
I'm with you, my brother. I'm with you.
Well, we literally just sent 125 copies of one of our clients' books to an event next week. We got the notification they arrived yesterday at the hotel, so they're in advance. The host, who's a world famous marketer, I'm not going to name names, but he's a world famous marketer. He caught my client, sent him a copy of his short, helpful book. He loved it so much. He said, I want to hand this out to every attendee. Now, it wasn't about the book sales for my client, making a couple dollars. Matter of fact, I think we just gave it to him at cost. The better thing with this particular client, David, was there are over 100 potential clients he's a physician, for his practice at that event. That's that connection. So it's funny you even brought that up, because I don't think I shared that with you when we were talking a few weeks back. It literally just happened this week. Anyway, misconceptions. Well, I think, I think people feel like, well, I've got to write a 300-page book because that's what a real book looks like. And to your point of sharing all those books, I would also add, I don't know if you're a fan of Seth Godin, but Seth Godin's books are all short books. As a matter of fact, his book, The Purple Cow, was the impetus for a shook. Not to digress too much, but Purple Cow is like, how do you make something that's ordinary extraordinary, right? Purple Cow stands out. Well, that's what forced us to brand a shook. Now, tons of people help folks with book publishing, which is what we do, but we're the only ones that publish shooks. So that's why we came up with this word. 95% of people like it. 5% of the people think it's dorky, but it is what it is. So the one misconception is they feel like they have to bloviate because that's what a real book is. That's what real publishers say it has to be because it has to be a certain price point and certain whatever. So that's not necessarily true. Another misconception, David, is I've got to spend lots and lots of time. Now, I do not subscribe to do a book in a weekend or, I'm not saying that. Like there needs to be thought, there needs to be some strategy given, but it doesn't need to be measured in, let's say years for sure, or several months. Matter of fact, David, I had a gentleman on my podcast a year ago. It took him 7 years to write his first book. 7 years. I interviewed him for that book on my podcast. We got talking about short books. He loved the concept, became a client, took him 3 months to write a second book, which happened to be a shook. So anyway, it doesn't necessarily have to take that time. And, there's so many reasons why you want it short. And then here's the third thing I'd say. A lot of authors, well, there's two more things. A lot of authors, and again, nonfiction, business-oriented book authors, they hide behind the book. And I think that's a very dumb strategy. I think more authors are getting smarter these days. Like if someone is interested in what you're saying and what your products and services, you need to be very clear on what that next step is. How do you work with me? Where do you get my products? How do you stay connected with me? So don't hide. And then I think I've already forgot the other idea I was just going to share, but that's what happens when you get older. But there's, again, if it's your first book, I highly recommend a shorter book approach.
Yes.
But there's no reason, all my 19 books, only a few of them, are over 200 pages. They're all short books.
One of the things that I think separates a shook from a lot of other books is you very intentionally work with all of your authors on direct marketing.
Yeah.
Direct marketing. And again, there's lots of places where this might show up. Things like, are there URLs in the book? Is there a clear call to action? Is there a next step? Is there a list of ways that folks work with you? Could you just kind of deconstruct the physiology of a shook and talk about, these are the critical components that will drive people back to you or your company. If you're a CEO or an entrepreneur, a lot of times we ignore this altogether or we're not aware of it. Even the people that are doing it are sometimes doing it wrong or not in an optimal way. So what's the direct marketing skeleton of a shook?
First of all, this is a real treat. And I'm not just saying that, David. I can tell you've really done your homework. A lot of times, as you well know, as a podcast guest, you're on there and the host barely even knows who you are, barely even uses your name.
Right.
I can tell you've done a little bit of research on me, so thank you. So this physiology, as you described, well, I mentioned my mom's grandmother who taught me the love of books. Well, my dad's grandmother, who came from Italy and who was an amazing cook, a Philadelphia Italian, she used to have these little recipe cards in her drawer for all her wonderful recipes. And gosh darn, I wish I had gotten those before she passed away. Well, this is our shook recipe card. It's the actual one we wrote up. And it's a recipe, a direct response marketing recipe for what I believe a short, helpful book should contain, from front cover to back cover. Everything from the front cover, David, to the back cover, starting with the first page to the last page. What are the ingredients? What order do they go in? And what should they contain to make that delicious dish or profitable book? So it is very specific. I encourage all the clients that we work with. I outline them in, very specifically in the magic of short books, which your listeners are going to get. In the 100-page book, I list that recipe. I list exactly what's in there. But it is a proven formula. It starts with really identifying, David, who should be even reading your book. I'd like to be very upfront. Very first thing, if there's not a forward, the very first thing we typically put is a chapter called Who Should Read This Book? And we delineate who should read it and who should not read it right there, because I don't want someone wasting time and saying, this is a crappy book. I was expecting 300 pages when the book title is a 100-page book, which, by the way, has happened on Amazon, as you might expect. But very clearly, that's marketing 101. Who are you trying to attract? Who are you trying to repel? And then it goes on to some other things in the beginning, the main matter, which is the main content. That's the helpful part of the book. And then I think the other really key thing that we do in our books, David, besides things like very thoughtful design, readability, and it's easy to read on the eyes. I was just talking to a client this morning. His first draft of some stuff was, it wasn't for his book. It was from book marketing. It was very hard to read on an older person's eyes, mine included. But the latter part of a shook, which we typically call the path forward, is now where you go from helpful content to being very strategic in selling, if you will, which again, a lot of people sort of cringe. But again, that book is meant to drive response. So again, it reminds the reader, who are you there for? Who do you typically work with? And if you're one of those avatars, if you will, what should your next step be if what I've shared in this little book interests you? So we're very explicit, very clear. And our little shook recipe is done very well for many, many of our clients.
That's so great. And I'm very excited. In a few minutes, we'll share the URL where people can get some resources from you, including the book that contains the magic recipe. Do you mind if I just play a little 20 questions with you?
I love it.
Okay. So cover of the book. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about some of the direct marketing, things to include, things not to forget, things not to get wrong on the cover of the book. Yeah. Gosh, just again, quick hits. Yep. It doesn't have to be a lot of detail.
Legible, readable, so that when your target reader can see it on Amazon, that little thumbnail, or see it on a bookshelf somewhere, they get it. Yeah. Talking to a client, I'm working with a physician right now. He has his in-house art team is sort of debating our art team. Oh, they want it a little prettier. They want it more fluff. And I'm like, no, it's got to be this way, legible. So that would be probably the biggest thing. Great title, easily for someone to grasp and not think too hard about what the book is about.
Okay, tremendous. And I also want to kind of go down this list in order because I think it was Joanna Penn had a blog post years ago, and they did some research and some heat map studies on what people look at in what order, especially with an online bookseller, but I'm sure it's the same in person too. First thing they look at, first thing that will catch their attention or not, is the front cover. Second thing is the back cover. Third thing is if they like what's on the back cover, they'll flip it open, table of contents. From the table of contents, they will open it up to a random page that you said good design, sharp, readable, crisp. So now they're looking, they go, okay, I'm going to buy this book. They might look at endorsements as well. So let's unpack all of that. Front cover, 10 points. Back cover. Back cover sometimes is just text. Sometimes it's endorsements, author photo. What else should be on the back cover or what should not be on a back cover?
Yeah, well, for our formula, we like to reiterate the big promise, the big idea behind the book. So in, let's say, 50 to 100 words, we're not talking a lot of text, but it is a short elevator pitch for the book. Typically, it's often the same stuff that's on like the Amazon page, why you want someone to read it. So typically we have this short elevator pitch and then oftentimes a short author bio.
Okay, awesome. Table of contents. And I know this is hotly debated. Lots of little micro chapters, 8 to 10 big chunky chapters. What's the table of contents strategy?
So that's the outline of the book, essentially, right? So given that these are 100-page books, they're not tons of chapters. Again, I am typically a subscriber to the notion less is more. So you want someone to be able to look at that table of contents, which should be strategic. Your chapter titles and all that should be strategic and engaging. But glance at it. Within 5 seconds, they say, you know what? Because no one's reading it, right, David? They're just glancing at it. There we go. So it's definitely less is more.
Okay. So skimmable and scannable.
Yep.
Love it. How about, so let's talk, I think the real meat of this is in that path forward section. Tell us a little bit about what's the DNA of that path forward section towards the back of the book.
Yeah, thank you. Because we've really, and I've developed this and updated it over the years to really, again, I'm a marketing geek like you're a marketing geek, right? So nothing's like set in stone. Things evolve, you get feedback, you see what's working now. So the path forward is definitely a very unique part of this. And it starts, David, as I was mentioning, and I have to give credit to where I got this from, which was, in my mind, marketing legend Dan Kennedy. So Dan Kennedy, who I'm a student of, shared about this concept that he's developed over the years called who relies on me, who relies on us. So it's a way for you to articulate in very small chunks, David, the 3, 4, 5 main types of customers, clients, patients, students, whoever is in your business that you work with. And what this allows the reader to do is self-identify. Oh, I am a local business owner who wants to establish local expertise. Mike's for me, right? So that who relies on us chapter was something that we've added over the last 2 years. As I've learned about it, see how it works. It's a very smart strategy. Then the next chapter typically is what we call the special sauce chapter. So you've said, who are you for? Here's my special sauce. In my world, it's a short, helpful book. It's what you do unique, what you do that sounds and feels unique and to you. Oftentimes that takes a lot of work. That's why it can't be done in a weekend.
Yeah.
Most business owners have competition. Most business owners, do similar stuff to a lot of other people. So how do you really create that purple cow? And then the third part of it, David, is what we call the next step chapter. Okay, I identify here. I see what Mike does. Here's the next step. And then you're very explicit. Go here, do this. Like literally, I'm not trying to talk down to anybody, but like you're talking to a third grader. Go to this website, click on this button, schedule a time with me.
Yes. You, me, call, help. I will help you on this call, right?
It boils down to that.
Is there one call to action or is there like a primary and a secondary for the folks that are not quite hot to jump in yet?
Yeah. So we have what we call our active and passive. The active, so look at my business. We publish books. We're looking for business owners, entrepreneurs, corporate leaders to work with. If they're hot, they like what I've shared, the active pathway is book a Zoom or phone call with me.
Yeah.
Right. Now, you're right. Most people aren't quite ready for that. So then there's the passive pathway, which is basically a lead generation / opt-in offer. So we have, in this particular book, I have a special reader resource page. It has a lot of more additional beneficial content that's not in the book, downloadable things. They just give their name and email, which obviously allows us for follow-up marketing.
Right. Hey, if you're loving this episode as much as I am, pop over to doitmarketing.com/manifesto and get your free 37-page download guide to how to sell smarter, sell more easily, sell more often. That's what we're here to help you with at The Selling Show. Off you go. So I know that your authors are on a couple of different tracks. I went to the website. There's the Main Street author and what that person wants and needs out of a short, helpful book. There's kind of the CEO entrepreneur track. And then help me remember, what's the third one?
No, actually, those are the two. So
it's just two.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's either a local business owner who wants to be what I say 5 mile famous. They want to be the chiropractor in their town that's known for their little special sauce. They're not interested in even being on Amazon. Then there's guys and gals like you and me who have a worldwide audience. They need to be on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, out there. So those are the two ways we distinguish our publishing programs.
Tremendous. Very quick, give me your philosophy, if you would, on endorsements that are on the book or in the book, and then the importance of Amazon reviews once it comes out.
Yeah. So again, I know we may or may not be on video, but I'll show it to you because I just get excited by this stuff. Are you a football fan or no?
I am not, but I'm not a sports fan of any kind.
All right, that's okay.
Sorry.
So I'm an NFL football fan. My one client played in the NFL. He's got a couple Super Bowl rings. His book, his endorsement, actually his foreword was by Joe Montana, his teammate on the 49ers. That's a pretty big, Joe wrote the foreword. So yes, I believe if you have either VIP clients or someone that you've worked with that has that name cachet, when you say endorsement, I'm talking now a forward. So if you have a great client that you've helped with or a VIP client, leverage that. Think about that. As far as endorsements, absolutely. I mean, David, you and I both know when your books are on Amazon or online somewhere where there is the opportunity to review and endorse, it's critical. It's a critical part. You can send out your book to readers before it's published, publicly and get endorsements, send it out to top people, ask for their endorsement. Yes, I highly recommend it.
And then importance of reviews.
Again, for the Main Street author, not so much.
Okay.
Because it's really, but for the person whose book's up on Amazon, it's not easy. And you and I both know, and Amazon makes it harder and harder because they're trying to tighten up the quality of the reviews.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. You have to be proactive. By the way, another part, which I didn't share, one of the ingredients is a chapter at the very end called a small request, a small favor, which I give a unique URL to the book, which redirects to Amazon and just say, hey, please, if you like the book, leave a review. Even with all that work, David, I don't know, 5-10% people leave reviews.
Right. Yeah. Such a great conversation, Mike. If folks were to take one overall concept from our conversation today about reframing their thinking about authorship and specifically about short, helpful books, what would you love that takeaway concept to be?
Again, awesome question. The takeaway concept is you can do it. And I would say this, David, there are people, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you're a local pizza shop owner, a physician who's helping patients around the world, a CEO, whatever. There are people out there who need and want what you can share in your short book. And every day that book does not exist means you are not serving those people. I have a mantra, serve the reader. How can you serve your readers and help them? That's the focus, not on how much it's going to cost and how much work it's going to be. If you're in the business of helping people, which most of us are, oftentimes a book is some way that you can not only create legacy and all that stuff, but help more people than you can ever know. I guarantee, and again this, David, you've helped so many people with your books. Just a little percentage of the people because they've reached out to you or said something to you. There's so many more people that you can help with a book. So that would be my encouragement.
Yes, that is such a powerful perspective and such a powerful come from that every day your book is not out there. It's another day that you're not helping the people that you're really meant to serve. Well, Mike, where can people get more information? Where can they connect with you and bite-sized books and the Shook Empire? How do folks get connected, stay connected to your world?
Well, one thing is I'd say, listen to our podcast, the one that you were gracious enough to be on, the Author Factor, authorfactor.com. And your episode is going to be coming up here shortly for broadcast. And there I talk to real smart people who've written a book and share their tips and ideas. I'd like to give a gift to your listeners. I mentioned I've got 3 shooks: The Magic of Gratitude, which is a little gift book; The Magic of Short Books, which is one of my Amazon #1 bestsellers; and then The Magic of Working Together. They can go to mikecapuzzi.com/magic. Let me know you heard me on David's podcast, and I'll send you a link. You can read all 3 of them right online. Very cool format. So that's probably the best place to go, David.
Mike Capuzzi, you are a rock star. All of those links, by the way, will be directly under this episode at thesellingshow.com. Mike, thank you so much for dropping all those value bombs. And might I say, I've done 350 some podcasts. I believe this was my first short, helpful podcast episode. So thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.
David, you're psychic again. This is weird. I was just writing an article for my blog, and I wrote about the Short Helpful podcast. So thank you.
Here we are doing one.
Oh, I'll point to this. Thank you very much, David. I appreciate it.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.